Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode is the 41st of the Instagram lives that we've done. And we've got 7 questions. And the episode coming out tomorrow or coming out now, depending on when you're listening to this, is a different episode than what we've done in the past. So we are speaking to a landscaper, but he's just a third-year apprentice. But Jack Hanley, his Instagram handle is The Crazy Running Man. And he's doing a charity run where he's running 50 kilometers every day for 50 days while also working full-time as a landscaper. So just an incredible story. So Jade from TA Turf Guru recommended to have a chat to him. And when I spoke to him, was it an hour ago? He's done 15 of the 50 days. So it's quite a good time to get him on. And just hear how much of an insane story that he's doing, and the effort that he's putting in to raise money for mental health awareness and reduce the stigma on it. So awesome guy to talk to. So hopefully you enjoy that episode, but we'll get into the questions here. First question from Rich Earth Landscape saying, how does it feel to be an industry icon? I think his tongue was in his cheek when he was asking that, but a lot of people do seem to think that people who have some sort of profile or a big Instagram following or anything that they think there's more to them than there actually is. But if any other landscaper started a podcast, it'd be exactly the same as me. So I'm no bigger deal than anyone else. It's the same if you're on TV landscaping. It doesn't mean that you've got any skills and you don't have any skills to do a landscaping podcast. So just another person putting one foot in front of the other. Fig Landscape said, what qualities do you look for in new employees? That is a great question because it's a tricky one to look for because there's so many different things that you want in a new employee, but it's not possible to see them all at an interview stage or even in at work getting them to work for a few days, so giving them a trial. So the most important thing is that you get along with them, I suppose. But even then, you don't have to get along with everyone, depending on the size of your business. If you're the person who's employing, but you don't do anything on site, then doesn't really matter whether they get on with you or not. More important that they get on with the people on site and the people that they're working directly under. But getting someone who fits into your team is the most important part, and someone with a good work ethic as well, because you can't teach good work ethic by the time they've come to you to look for a job, but you can teach them how to do landscaping or design or maintenance, whatever you want to teach them. But work ethic is the most important part, and generally you've either got that or you don't. It's something that can be developed, but it takes a long time. So, and it will improve usually over time, but you're not like. It also depends on what type of employee you're looking to put on. Like if you're looking to put on a qualified landscaper or garden maintenance person or designer, then you're obviously going to want to look at the type of skills and experience that they've got. But if you're just putting on an apprentice or a new person to the industry, then it's more important that you're looking for someone who's a good person and that you get along well with them and they fit into your team. Because that's the most important part, because you can have a team and everything's going along well, and then if you employ the wrong person, that can upset people who are good workers and have been with you for years, and this one person can ruin it for everyone else and by putting on one person you might lose 2 people or more, and losing any experienced people is that's pretty upsetting to the business. So it is important to try and find someone who's going to get along well with everyone. And if you find someone who's not, then you've got to get rid of them as soon as possible before they upset the apple cart. The next question is from Aaron Holman, Landscape Design. He said, what's your favourite plant? So if I have to pick a favourite plant out of all the plants in the world, it would be frangipani. But if we sort of, zoom in down on it and look, if I give you an example of some favorite plants for particular uses, I'd say the plant I use most in most designs would be the Lamandra Tanica, because it's such a versatile plant, and it also doesn't get as messy as what some of the bigger Lamandras do. So I think they look pretty neat when they're fully grown, and they'll grow in full sun, full shade, coastal, drought tolerant. They don't mind getting a little bit wet. Like, they're just a tough as nails plant, but they don't look like they're a tough as nails plant, like they're a grass. So um, obviously there's not that, the flowers obviously don't look any good either. But yeah, that would be that for that situation. I'm doing my front garden at the moment. I'm looking to have some um, spheres in there. So I've got some Westringia, so Westringia balls. They're going to get shaped. So I've got Westringia Smoky because I got like the grey look of that. And I've got some Teucrium. So I like Teucrium balls as well. Had some of them from the garden show that we got from Warner's Nursery, and they looked phenomenal. But I didn't want to buy them and put them in and then find someone just picks it up and walks away with it because it's in the front yard. So I've just got some small ones in that'll grow, and then they'll get their roots down before they start to look any good. In terms of trees, I do like the water housias. I like them as a hedge. We did a job for Georgia Harbour a while ago in St Leonard's, and she designed some in there, and I went back there, and I think it's been 4 years, maybe, could even be longer since we were there. But the trees looked amazing. So yeah, they do get big, so you got to keep them under control a bit. But yeah, they're a beautiful looking tree. So yeah, the Waterhousia floribunda would be a good tree to have down the side. Ragged Blossom Designs got a question saying, how do you go about garden beds against house foundations, concerns about termites and dampness, etc.? So we're pretty lucky in Geelong in terms of termites, because there's areas in sort of the Bannockburn, Inverleigh, out in the kind of towards the more rural areas of Geelong. There's termite issues out there, and then there's a small pocket in the CBD where there is, but everywhere else there's no termite issues. So and I found that out by getting deck permits, and in those areas where there's known termite infestation, you've got to build your deck. I think it's 25 mil off the house, so you can't have anything touching the house, and your decking board, you've got to have a gap of 25 mil between the decking board and the door sill or wherever it's near the house. So that's a pretty big gap. It could even be 30. I can't remember, but it was massive. It's all consistent, so it doesn't look too bad. But because we only had to do it once, so don't have any issues with termites. But it's a tricky one putting garden beds around the house, because most builders don't like it there. They'd like to have concrete a meter wide all the way around the house falling away. But as long as you're not pumping a heap of water in to those areas. So a lot of the time they're under eaves, or if they're not on the prevailing weather side, then they'll stay pretty dry anyway. And so you got to choose the right plant for them. But it's the important thing about house foundations is that they're consistent all around. So you don't want to have a dry area for 70% of it and then the rest of it's wet all the time, because that's when you're going to have issues. Like if it's all wet all the time, it's all consistent. And not wet, but if it all stays the same moisture content, then there's no problems with it. So it doesn't matter if it's dry or a little bit damper, as long as it's all consistent. So that's where you can have issues with that. But we've never had any. There's never been any issues on any jobs that we've done that I've been made aware of. And the same with my own house that we did. Well, that was 2009 that we built that and moved out this year. So that's 14 years. And just trying to think, I had some artificial grass up there and some decking, and then out the front, which is on the south side, there was all garden beds. And there was a little bit of moss on the bricks, but we had never had any issues with the house moving or cracking anywhere. So Yeah, it might, like if you've got a really highly reactive clay, it might be a bigger an issue. But yeah, it's a tricky one because there are houses where they do have issues with it. But what is it that causes that? It could be that it's extremely reactive clay, or yeah, because we've had irrigation systems and they haven't caused issues with it. So that is a great question. It's not something that is an issue for us. So, but it could be it's one of those things that it only has to become an issue once, and then you're in a world of strife. So it's something to keep an eye on. And if you're going to put garden beds around the perimeter of the house, try and put ones there that you don't have to pump too much water into, so that it's consistent with the areas that are under a concrete or paving. And then if you're putting a deck there, you're going to have a gap underneath, or a hole that you've excavated to allow the deck to go into. So you want to put drainage under there, or at least having it fall away from the house. That's a good question. Next question is from Abcam Horticulture. Cam just won a bronze medal, I believe, at the Landscape Victoria Awards, and he's got a question about the awards as a judge, saying, as a Landscape Victoria judge, did you feel you learnt anything that will benefit InStyle? Not this year. So this is the third year I've done it. The previous 2 years, the category we did was the 75,000. So it was in the construction side of things, and it was the $75,000 to $150,000 category. Whereas this year it was up to $75,000. So the projects were a lot less involved. I don't know if that's the right word, but there was a lot more to the ones, as you would imagine, in the $75,000 to $150,000 category. So previous years I've learned a lot about the way people do things, and I suppose even this year actually, what I learned was the different way people present their projects and how much detail they go into with the design and the quote. So there was some pretty impressive, like they were all really impressive actually, the quote presentation. So that's an important part of the process, because that's the first thing that well, it's not the first thing that the client sees, but after they've seen you on site and then spoken to you about what they want, then you present them with the quote. So it's an opportunity to impress them again. So you want to use every opportunity that you've got to impress a client. And everyone who submitted everyone who was in our category did well with their quote presentation. So didn't learn anything on the construction side of things, but definitely in the office work side of things, which is equally as important, because you can't do the construction if you don't win the job, and that's the best way to win the job, is by a good quote presentation and design presentation, and also the amount of details in the design. So I don't know what people pay for the designs, but there was a lot of detail in most of them as well, which is good for not only the client but people building the gardens. Steve Nyland said, do you think garden design is a growing industry, or are there limits to how far it can go and how many designers there can be? I think it's definitely a growing industry, and not only just design in general, but because of all the different niches you can go into. So that you can be native design. I know that there's with builders, I seem to be seeing a lot more of it of passive houses. So I don't know if there's a particular style of landscape design that would suit that. I know Nadia from Platalobium, I assume she'd be doing that because she works with Sanctum Homes, who do a lot of passive homes. So there's those type of designs. There's the modern style, which is sort of my bread and butter. I like to do. There's Kihara Landscapes in Melbourne. They do Japanese style gardens. There's all the tropical ones. There's so not only are there a lot of designers who do all the different bits and pieces of design, so there's rooftop gardens and vertical garden people who predominantly do those designs. So not only are there people who do all of the different genres of design, but there's heaps of people who niche down and really knuckle down into one particular style. So when you think about that like that, there's an enormous amount of opportunity. But also, I've seen a lot of designers who are educating about design. So they're doing a design course, and that's an awesome thing to do as well. And I don't think there can be too many people doing that either, because of the exact same reason that there's heaps of different niches. So you might have someone who does a lot of native designs or native gardens teaching about native garden design. So whatever a client wants to learn about, they can. So it's like podcasts. Whatever you're interested in, there's a podcast about it. And whatever garden theme that you're interested in, there's probably someone selling a design course teaching you how to do it yourself. So if you can't afford to pay to get them to design your garden and you want to do it yourself, then there's someone out there teaching people how to do it. So yeah, it's a massive industry, and that's, I don't think it's full. Like, there are a lot of people doing it, but another thing that means there can be heaps of people doing it is there's different budgets. So there's people who want to spend $100 for a design, and there's people who want to spend 30 grand for a design, and everywhere in between. So yeah, like what I was saying before about people designing all the different styles of gardens, that's all good and well, but you also got to realize that not every client is your client. So the budget that you're working in, that might not suit people. So if you're charging $30,000 for designs, there's no point trying to win the work of people who are only going to pay $100 for a design. So yeah, so I was waffling on a bit there, but that's an example of how there is so much room for new designers and different types of designers, and it's definitely a growing industry. And then growing even further than that is construction, because there's all these people who are doing designs. Someone's got to build the designs, and it's a lot quicker to do a design than it is to build it. So then, yeah, all designers are screaming out for quality landscape builders to build their projects, because it's all good and well to design it, but then it's not just something that you're drawing on a piece of paper. It's something that's supposed to get built. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities within the industry. So, and then you got to maintain it. So it's a big beast that everyone's all working together on the same project. So it's a good industry. The Life of Bow River said, "What's something you've learned from your in-house designer?" So that's Emma, landscape architect. We've got a very similar style in like the things we like. So when she does most of the design, and I'll look at it and think that's awesome. I can't wait to see that built. But something I did learn a lot from her is in the presentation, and that's something I wanted to improve on a lot when I brought her on board. And that's just, again, it doesn't make a difference to how the actual project looks once it's built, but in terms of the presentation to the client, makes a huge difference. So there's a lot of wow factor involved in presenting designs, or that's what you want anyway. So you want to give them the design and they fall in love with it straight away. And that's what we've been able to do. So basically I just told her to, whatever we need, I'll get to do a good presentation. So with the design presentations, she does some work in Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop on there to make them look a lot prettier, and do like the different plant schedule and the material schedule, and then even just make the colors on the actual design look good. So, and then she's also done a bit of 3D stuff as well for little just sort of views. So you don't need to get the whole thing done in 3D, but just to help visualize a certain element of the design. So she's got the skill to do that as well. So, but yeah, so it's not so much anything about actual design, but it's more about the presentation. So, and that's what I was wanting to improve and continuing to improve on. So, and we've also worked on a survey, which I keep meaning to knuckle down and get that sent out so that we can send that to the clients before committing to a design. But always continuously improving. And the last question for this evening is from Earth Escapes, saying, "What's the most satisfying moment of a job, and what day do you jump out of bed for?" I do enjoy finishing jobs, which is something that someone who doesn't like their job would say, but I just like seeing it when it's actually looking how it's supposed to look. I actually also I do enjoy when something goes wrong on a job, like it's something like an irrigation leak or a gate drops a little bit, so you got to go back and fix it, so that you actually get to see how it looks when it's starting to grow. Which it's not obviously you don't want to. It'd be good if you don't get called back, and that's the goal. But it's always good when you do get called back to get to have a look at it. Or I could just go back and look at projects, but it's not like I deliberately do those things anyway. So, but it is always good to see when it's grown. But prior to that, on the last day of the job, it looks awesome. So that'd be one of the best parts. And in terms of what gets me out of bed or what I jump out of bed for, 40 years old, so I'm not jumping out of bed at the moment, but unless I sleep in past my alarm. But we're about to do a project where we're just doing paving, and I think there's 150 square meters of meter by 5 bluestone paving, and I couldn't be more excited for it. Like it's like the a lot of things we do is very detailed, and you've got to think a few steps ahead and plan certain bits and pieces. So there's a bit of thinking involved. But with the paving, it's just the concrete area has already been done. It's got a perfect amount of fall. It's been set up for full pavers from as much as it can be. So there's just going to smash that down, and it'll look awesome real quick as well. So yeah, paving is my favorite part. It's a profitable thing to do as well when you do it fast. So that's something I also look forward to doing. But don't know if my body's that excited about it, but especially lifting up meter by 5s. But it's the mind is excited about it anyway. So body will just have to suck it up. But that was the last question. So thank you very much for everyone who submitted one. I really appreciate the ones who were submitted. And once again, it's an awesome episode out this week with Jack Hanley, the crazy running man. Also from his New Era Turf and Gardens. Apologies for getting that wrong. But his main Instagram account is the crazy running man. So check that out and make a donation if you can. At the very least, you can buy one of his shirts for $50. And show your support that way. But thanks very much for everyone again who submitted a question, and we'll see you next week.